So without further ado, let's bring on today's guest. Hi, Gerald. You're very welcome back to the show.
Hi, James. It's really terrific to be back again.
Oh, here we go again, Gerald. Another round. It's like we're stepping into the ring each time, Gerald.
Yeah. And I know we both had to do a lot of preparation, and I think I'm ready if you are. Let's get ready to rumble!
That's it, brother. No, yeah, and just before we go there, Gerald, I know we're selling tickets fast for the symposium in the Yucatan. I just want to mention it as well. So we're getting pretty excited about that too, Gerald. That's coming up in September. So I'm pumped, brother. It's going to be great to see you down there in Mexico. So we can catch that on your blog page as well, Gerald Clark 77. So if anybody wants to see myself and Gerald and go to the conference and a little bit of a gathering at the monuments, you'll catch that on Gerald's page, or mine as well, jamesswagger.com for tours events. Gerald, here we go. The Key of Mysteries, Tablet 8 we're on today. And like I just said in the prelude there to the show, but the light body, I was just watching stuff today, funny enough, from a different source for a different reason. This light body, this thing is known to exist, Gerald, that when people are evolved, saintly, or there's many ancient references to people having a shine or a glow off them and a halo around the head. How far would this light body go, Gerald? And we'll kind of throw this into the start of the Emerald Tablets.
Well, it's an interesting question. First of all, I have seen lots of indications of correlations of spiritual beings, whether they're angels or the ancient Anunnaki showed with light emanating around their head or with a halo. So this affiliation with light is very, very interesting. And I think we're going to, between this tablet and up through tablet 10, I believe it really goes deep into the concepts of the nature of light. And that part got me real excited, having been employed at Light Point Communications for a couple of years and doing multiple patents on free space optics that dealt with light. So this tablet's kind of interesting. It throws a couple of curveballs too that I think are unexpected, but deep stuff in both these tablets. Like all of them, it's all very deep. And the more you look at it, the deeper knowledge you find in there. And we just as a heads up, we've been researching the idea of holographic reality and simulations, and watching lots of different movies on it too. And I just read a really terrific article today that was on the nature of the holographic reality and simulation. And scientists have been talking about this for quite some time, even though it's been pretty much put in a corner. But now it's becoming mainstream. Anyway, in that concept of having a holographic reality and avatars, Thoth begins this tablet by telling us that he takes on these different bodies during incarnations with mankind, and specifically taking on bodies of men. And I wanted to read you this little section out of the tablet itself, where he says it, and it's quite interesting. He says, "Not as man am I, for free have I become of dimensions and planes. In each take I on a new body. In each I change my form. Know I now that the formless is all there is of form." Wow. So he not only tells you he's an avatar, but he can take on different forms, and he can do whatever he wants depending on the dimension and plane that he's in. So the idea of light composing matter, which we've talked about before, I think we're going to get into that even deeper, especially when we get into tablet 10.
He's just laying this out for us, Gerald. He's just spelling this out, and he's saying, this is the power of what I have, and this is what I can do, basically.
Yeah. Well, also he tells you, I was like you before, but this is what I was able to achieve. So he tells us that man is in the process of changing to forms that are not of this world. And this formless form that he's saying we're going to approach is an energetic or spiritual state. And so that we can participate in the higher dimensions. And so you're going to see that come out in these tablets, where he basically tell you you've got to lose your body and become formless to merge with the light. Now that sounds like, oh my gosh, well how do you do that? I gotta go join a Jim Jones cult and kill myself to participate in this? No, not at all. You'll see that, and we've already talked about this. He points out the reality of your energy and your soul and your wisdom existing outside of your body. And he talks about this as I call it an out-of-body experience. That's what culture calls them, or oobs. But he talks about that. As soon as you're able to achieve that, he says, you're golden. So anyway, wow. So we're told to lose our bodies and merge with this light. Mm-hmm. And he also instructs us that at a point in the process that we could speak with the 7 cycle masters in the halls of Amente telepathically. So he's telling you, you don't have to speak with words, that you can also do it telepathically, because they pick you up, dwelling in their little blue light temple in the halls of Amente. So that's kind of a bizarre concept, that thoughts are real things, and since we can measure them with an EEG, that in the electromagnetic spectrum, we know that where there's electricity and there's magnetism, they're orthogonal waves to each other, and they travel all through space and time. So the idea that our thought could be perceived by an avatar who's dwelling in this halls of Amente, I don't think that's too much to consider, especially when we've already said that given our satellite technology, they most likely can, they've been able to decode a human thought since 1964 through various 3-letter agencies in the United States. So extrapolate forward and consider what they're able to sense in terms of your energy body, your thoughts from very large distances now.
They can even control thoughts and plant thoughts in your head. That's been proved at the Jesse Ventura. And I know the Jesse Ventura.
A lot of people have looked at what's going on in the extreme low frequency using various programs. The most famous one, which is HARP, that's been supposedly shut down. Now they do it on mobile naval vessels, so that I guess they can have more of an access to the ionospheric place that they want to heat up and poke a hole in than another location. So anyway, so that's an abomination in and of itself. But yeah, through that process of modulating thoughts or frequencies, they may be cacophonic frequencies that make your head want to split. Who knows? They could put any of those onto a carrier and in the extreme low frequency transmit them to your perceiver, your brain.
I know we're at a time in our lives, Gerald, not just our specific lives, I mean the human race, where science is at cutting edge. Everybody's becoming more familiar with science and more scientific terms, and we get these scientific know-how thrown about in pop culture now. And we're at a time now where we can understand what's in these tablets, Gerald, because I think that's where we're at. I mean, 80 years ago, would we have understood the stuff? Probably not. I mean,
well, yeah, that's the thing, and it was true of the Enuma Elish too. I mean, how could you understand that complex cosmogony unless you had the scientific perspective to know that it was A, possible, and B, that we could extrapolate forward and see that we could do some of those things now. Well, the same with this. A lot of the Western medical instruments are able to visualize your brain wave and also your energy in your brain as you're thinking a thought. Lots of different ways to visualize our energy. X-rays, for looking at teeth and bones, and lots of different wavelengths and frequencies can be used to affect the human body.
Look how many people know about quantum physics, and I mean know about it to the extent of the properties and this holographic stuff going on. They can't do the math because it's extremely difficult even for the physicists. Yeah, but I mean they don't need to do the math. They know the properties and they know what can happen and what can't happen, and this exotic behavior that goes on, and look, the documentaries that are out there now. This is in our mindset these days to understand this material. I think we're ready.
Yeah, a lot of people may not know what the double slit experiment proved to quantum physics as it relates to light as a wave or a particle. It actually, for most physicists who actually sat through this and got this, it really all of a sudden pulls the rug out from under you to think that in science you would ever be able to know something absolutely. Because basically what happens with this experiment is you come to realize when you observe light, it has an undeterminate response to being observed, meaning it knows you're watching. Now you just think about that and think about where light came from. And we're going to talk about in this tablet. He gets into that. He says light came from the creator of all, that came from chaos. and that we've talked about that all matter is composed of light or frequency. Wavelength times frequency is light, is the speed of light. Mm-hmm. So that basically stitches the periodic table of the elements together to create what we believe is matter. Mm-hmm. And that's why I like that movie, The Matrix. I think they do a good job of pulling the rug out from under you and believing that what you see and touch is real. So, not everything was happy though. He brings up, kind of this disturbing affiliation with darkness that happened in the past on Atlantis. He said even before Atlantis, there were some Earthmen who were power hungry and sought to gain wisdom from a source that was not allowed, basically from some dark forces. Yeah. And by them calling them forth, that they came into this plane. And that's really a really disturbing thing. And the fact is, they looked like men to us, but the reality was they were some sort of serpent being from another dimension, according to him. Well, he says they had a head that was kind of serpent-like when you were able to determine that. So for us as our avatar eyes, we can't see but a mere range of 300 nanometers. That's 400 to 700 nanometers that we can see in the simulator. Mm-hmm. Whereas we know that there are other creatures on the planet that can see better than that. So, we're really constrained from that standpoint. So even though these forces that came from another plane came to the Earth, they didn't have to take on, I guess they could have stayed invisible to mankind like some of these other avatars do. But these particular ones, he said, they needed bodies. So, and blood. So what he says, bodies and blood, to take on a physical form. And when he says that, he means not an animal, he means mankind's, to be exact. So these beings came as avatars, but they didn't come to teach mankind how to get out of bondage. They came here to overtake you and rule you, basically. So that goes way, now, if it happened before Atlantis, this is pre-50,000 years ago. So this goes back, way back when, where these forces apparently have been, from the inception of time, it looks like they've been fighting.
It's not all pink bubbles, Gerald. It's not all pink bubbles.
No, unfortunately it's not. So he specifically points out that the way they were summoned was through blood sacrifices and rituals being performed. So anywhere that's going on, you can probably guess that there's probably dark forces that are being summoned to the same ones that they were talking about Atlantis, these successful beings, primitive workers that wanted more than they were given access to. So they were seeking power, basically, by using darkness. So, and we have some evidence of that going on with politicians and leaders all across the world that are attending this little ritual at Bohemian Grove, where they conduct a cremation of care ritual involving child sacrifice. So all of a sudden, who are they summoning to be over there working with them? Well, I've said for a long time that Enlil and his son, Zeus and Apollo, or Enlil and Ninurta, whichever name you want to call him. One's got the symbol of an eagle, and the one's a double eagle. And look and see where you see those symbols, and see if happy things are happening on behalf of those organizations. It's usually nothing but destruction.
Isn't that a bizarre episode?
I give you Libya, I give you Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria. I could go on and on and on. Look for the sign of the eagle. Okay.
Isn't that
Germany? Yeah.
Isn't that a bizarre episode? The whole Bohemian Grove, isn't it? That Canaanite Isle god Molech. What's going on with that stuff, Gerald?
Well, I think they're doing exactly what Thoth is saying here. Is they're summoning a dark entity that's very powerful, that's basically emboldening these beings who have given up their earth suits to these serpent beings that are now controlling them. I really think, based on what we're seeing in politics and world conflict today, there's no cooperation. I mean, these are soulless beings. They definitely don't possess the human soul, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of empathy and compassion. I mean, it's just abominable what's going on in the world right now. We thought what was going on in the Holocaust in Germany was bad. It's just as bad now. if not worse.
Wow.
So anytime you see blood sacrifices or rituals going on, you probably don't want to join that organization. It's probably not happy because they've invited in forces, according to Thoth, that are very dark. And, so there's this idea that the Anunnaki were reptilian at some point. This came up. And it's because of some of the statues they had showing up in the Ubaid period from Eridu, I think. Well, all of a sudden now, you realize what he's written here. These beings have been around for a long time. And maybe these serpent-headed beings were the ones that they had encounters with long ago. Mm-hmm. And this is really frightening that they were actually hidden. They looked just like men. But he says that their glamour was lifted, and essentially they had a countenance that covered their real appearance with the face of a man. How they did that is not known to me. Somehow in their ability to form matter, they did that. Well, this is really frightening. And, Thoth states that the masters of light encountered these beings before and did battle with them. And they knew that there was a certain sound that could be made that would unmask their countenance and basically expose these dark force body snatchers that were here taking over all the high places among mankind. Well, Matt, look around the world right now. Do you not think that has already happened again?
Do you remember that program?
It would explain a lot of the behavior.
Do you remember that program from the 80s called V for Victory?
No. Did you see the one, They Live?
No, I haven't seen that one either. There's one there.
We had to put glasses on, and all of a sudden, I think you could see who the real being was. Instead of saying a word that unmasked their countenance, these glasses allowed you to see them.
Oh wow! Well, this one they were all.
So actually, I was goofing around, and I wasn't going to make much of this, but I was goofing around on the internet looking to see what this word was, because apparently, according to Thoth, they gave this word to mankind in order to use it to unmask the countenance of these sneaky forces that he said are going to come back. They come back. He said they thought they got rid of all of them, but some of them were hiding in places unknown to man in our plane. So they had gone interdimensional on them to get away. So, but he said they'll be back. And if you look, like I said, and I'm going to call one of them out right now. Look at the president of Ukraine that has violated the Minsk agreement over and over again. You tell me he's not overtaken by some entity that is just full of darkness. And you know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Poroshenko. Mm-hmm. The idea of he's staging massive military right now, firing again on the Donetsk airport, while they, for the second time, have signed a peace agreement, a truce in Minsk. He's the one doing it. Well, what kind of energy is in him that wants to further perpetuate that kind of destruction that those innocent people have experienced? Okay. Anyway, they're both at fault, but consistently, I've been watching him. This guy is full of darkness. Mm-hmm. Whoever he is that took over the land where the trident used to be on the flag, is truly smearing the noble character of the god Poseidon who ruled over Atlantis that had that symbol. What a smear. Anyway, I'll get off that platform.
Let's go back to the Ubaid figurines, Gerald, because this is tangible. I know we spoke about them before, because the Dogon, like I said to you before, they're able to describe their progenitors, and they're exactly like the statues that occur in the Ubaid culture of Iraq, these 4,200 BC Ubaid figurines. Just put UBAID into Google Images and you'll see this, folks. Gerald, these things are crazy. We got some in the British Museum as well. I have photos I must share with you.
Now those statues to me look reptilian or serpentine a little bit, especially in the head.
Especially in the head.
Yeah. But I've never seen a picture of any of the Anunnaki that showed them to be looking like that. I mean, we have statues of the Greek gods who we know are the Anunnaki in Greece. Listen, they portrayed themselves in statues all over the place. We know what they look like. They were the archetype of men and women. Generally, they weren't. Now, could they take on another form if they wanted to? Sure looks like if they had the power that Thoth does, they could, because you saw what he just said. He said he could take on any form in any dimension.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, we're looking at two separate entities, two separate peoples, two separate races, two separate whatever. You know, this is clearly for the tangible evidence that we're looking at here, John. There's two people at play here.
Right. Well, I agree, and and there was also the Ajiji back in the Atrahasis, which may or may not have been a sub race of the Anunnaki, but some people have said they're the alien race, but I absolutely disagree. We have pictures of their offspring, who were the children of Og, the Philistines, who were very large, and they looked just like men, but they were large. Wow. I guess they call them Nephilim as well. So yeah, but they did not have the appearance of anything reptilian. That wasn't the form that they took on. Maybe they had the potential to do it, but in all the images we have, they weren't. So I don't believe the Ajiji were reptilian looking, but I do believe these beings they had statues of in Eridu during the Ubaid period. Maybe they had an encounter with these serpent beings that Thoth is telling you about right here. Because his father's temple was in Eridu, and he was around, and Ningshita was around. So I'm sure he had encounters with them.
Didn't Ningshita represent the serpent as well?
Well, he had the symbol of the caduceus that was handed to him by Enki, who had it before. So the two serpents on the caduceus represented the double helix of the DNA to me, and then it may have had some other. Now, in Egypt and in areas of Mesopotamia, they had two symbols for kingship. One was the dragon, and one was the serpent, and they also used the crocodile occasionally as well. But generally, it was like a dragon or a Masupu dragon, like Marduk had in Babylon. This one that he had showed standing with his foot on top of this little dog-sized dragon. Well, these were symbols that usually alluded to kingship. So I thought that was interesting.
Wow. Well, yeah. There's clearly some sort of interaction going on, though, Gerald. There's a clear interaction going on between the serpent or reptilian entities and either the Anunnaki, whether that was a permanent thing or in primitive times or whatever. There was some sort of interaction going on, perhaps a trade of information or a trade of souls, trade of whatever, Gerald. Trade of
yeah. Well, he tells us. I want to go back to this. He told us he left the word that would unmask the countenance of these serpent beings that would overtake your bodies. And apparently, the way he says it, he calls it, not only they parasitically take over these bodies, but they slay the host, meaning they own the soul after that point, and they drain the energy from the body. Wow. So it's quite interesting. Yeah. Anyway, but I was looking around the internet to see if I could find anywhere, and I went through all the tablets. He does not leave this word that unmasks their countenance for you. So I was looking around anywhere that I could see if I could find it. And I came across somebody who'd done some research that thought they had found it. And I sent you a little picture of the three symbols. Did you get it?
Oh, yeah. Explain this to me.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought, well, if it's real, then it probably would have existed in Sumeria. So I'll see if I can find any of the cuneiform symbols that had those sounds that make up this word. So what was the word? It was Kin Ni Gan. K-I-N-N-I-G-A-N. So I looked this up in cuneiform to see if I could find the words that made this work, and to see if I knew what the symbols meant. Because we knew functionally it was being used to unmask the countenance, right? So I looked up kin. It was 121A5 in hexadecimal code for that cuneiform symbol. It was 1224C for Ni, and then 120F6 for Gon. And I drew them for you too, so just so I can get some practice. I see that. And by the way, as far as that goes, we have a Sumerian cuneiform dictionary, and we also have the uniform code for all of the hexadecimal symbols, or the symbols with a hexadecimal code, so you can download them to your computer. That's just like the same way ASCII text is done on our, with our language. Mm-hmm. So we have this available, so anybody can go read it now. So if anybody's beating up somebody else because they didn't transcribe it correctly, go do it yourself. See how much time it takes. It takes time. It's not hard, but it does take time.
Wow.
So, interestingly, the Ni symbol, according to what I looked, now we know the word ki means earth. Okay. And then Ni, according to this, represents an aura or awesome aura. And then the Gan, the word translates to bear or like as in childbearing. So I didn't quite understand that, but I was trying to see if there was a Sumerian word that Thoth might have left us so I could figure this out. Anyway, that was a wag, okay, on my part, but if anybody knows or has insight, maybe somebody at the, organization that Doriel worked at, whether he's still alive or not in Colorado, maybe they know what that word is. I'd love to know what it is. Imagine you, name a soda after it and everybody's saying it, and any of these guys that are out there can't hide in a body anymore because they've been unmasked all the time and they're gone.
At the risk of sounding stupid here, Gerald, it's actually an Irish surname, Kinnigan. If you spell it like the way you see it, Kinnigan, it's like an Irish surname.
Really? Well, send me an email or send me a text.
My neighbour's a Kinnigan, by the way.
Show me how it's spelled, because I showed you how this one's spelled.
Well, you would have to put the I as an E, but I think you can do that with Sumerian anyway. But yeah, like Kinnigan, if you said it.
Isn't that interesting, though, that I found a valid Sumerian word and the meanings of the individual symbols kind of when they put together, it sounds like it might be something you unmask a countenance. It's not exact, but it has a connotation.
I'm going to ask this neighbor of mine, I'm going to say, are you a serpent? And I'm going to want to see your face.
Gone. Yeah. What'd you just say? I was telling the kitty to be gone. That's what it was. No. Hey, so this next section of the tablet gets a little bizarre, and I don't know how much time we'll spend talking about it. I know we're going to play the tablet out, but this gets bizarre. Now, I've had out-of-body experiences. Mm-hmm. I've done, like, several times I've talked about it on shows, and some people just think that's absolutely ludicrous, but unless you've had one,
yeah,
it's like, can you describe the taste of something to someone else? No. Well, how could you possibly describe this experience to someone? It's not possible. Anyway, Thoth talks about doing this, and he talked about it in previous tablets, how he even gave the instructions on how to do it, right? We went over that.
Yeah.
Including I gave the instructions on Robert Monroe's method as well. And it's very intuitive, and they're very, very similar. Well, he's talking about he left his body to go explore the boundaries to gather wisdom for us, right? And he said he went to the limits of our universe. Basically, he went all the way to the furthest bounds of where time begins, because beyond that is in the great void where time does not exist. And I think that's only now with the creator of all in the circle of light or whatever. But he's saying he went to the limit of that. And when he was out of his body. And when he got there, unfortunately for him, he detected that these guards of the barrier, I don't know, you think of them as hellhounds, if you will. These hounds were there whose job it was to prevent anybody from passing that wasn't supposed to. And he says they detected him, and he fled back to try to get away from him, and that he had to take circular dimensions, or dimensions that had a circular axis, a curved axis, versus those that had linear axis, because they couldn't follow a curved plane. But they could follow you in a plane that was linear, where they could travel in a straight line. That's really just trippy, okay? But it's frightening, actually, his discussion of trying to get away from him, all the way back to, he said, if you travel a straight line from your astral body back to your body, that they not only can pursue you, but pursue you right into the body. What a severe warning. I mean, I mean, it's so severe, you're like, well, I'll never go to the limit. And that's his final word is, I'm telling you this for your own good. Don't go to the outer boundary. Wow. What he does tell you is to amplify your own light and get there through this dimension. So you can have an out-of-body experience and stay in what's called the local area. Yeah. And, excuse me, Robert Monroe calls them locales 1, 2, and 3. And I think they map directly to what science has shown us to be our Van Allen belts, because now we found out there's 3 of them. So these are these energetic electron fields, if you will, that your human energy body can go past, but it's problematic, and you've got to know how to pass. So it's an interesting concept that Robert Monroe had these 3 locales discussed, and he had hundreds of out-of-body experiences where he wrote down every single one and started the Monroe Institute many, many years ago, and facilitates this experience for lots of people. So anybody who wants to, go look up the Monroe Institute. I think it's really a great thing he did for humanity. Anyway, so the final ritual he goes through to get free has to do with standing in a circle, putting a cross in it, and then speaking some word to basically make sure that he's not still in his out-of-body state. I mean, this is really scary stuff. So my advice to people is work within the 3 bounds that we have, and when you do want to leave this dimension to go to a higher state, follow Thoth's advice, and he tells you that that's accessible through the Duat gate, and that you're also allowed to go into the halls of a mente in your out-of-body experience, and he actually encourages you to do that over and over. So if you make those your destinations, if you make the Duat gate your destination, then you better have memorized what the passage words are in these tablets to get through. Wow. And he tells you Cyrus is going to be there guarding it. So there's 2 dimensions there at the Duat, and once you get through that, he tells you one of your birthrights as a sun soul being, not in this tablet, in a previous one, is to actually take an entire 6 hours, go to a Rulu when you're out of your body, and visit those who have made it and all your ancestors. That's pretty bizarre. But he's telling you, you have that opportunity to do that while you're still here in this 3rd dimension.
It's incredible stuff. I love a bit of background information.
If you would have read this stuff 80 years ago, you'd be like, unless there were people who had published about out-of-body, you'd think this is all just sheer nonsense.
But yeah, and this is the thing, like, I mean, and I love the background that we're getting into with the Monroe Institute, because when I checked it, I actually hadn't been aware of that until we did this, and that's what I love about the show, Gerald, is I get to explore these background material and what a wealth of material the Monroe Institute has done.
He's one of my heroes, actually, and probably because I read his book when I was 17, having been asked to do so by my humanities teacher that read about my OOB experience in my journal. Mm-hmm. And I this was no big deal to me. I mean, it had been happening to me a lot since I left Arkansas. But this particular one got caught in a journal that was required for a class, and he read about it, and I had no idea what I was saying, really. I just knew what was happening to me, but I didn't know that it was called an OOB, an out-of-body experience. But anyway, so I read Robert Monroe's book, The Journeys Out of the Body, when I was 17, because it was so freeing for me to realize what was happening, because it actually was, sometimes it was frightening to me. But most of the times it was sheer pleasure. And it's one of those things that is so intense emotionally that it burns it in your memory. And when you think about the different experiences you had, it's like it just happened yesterday. It's not like an ordinary dream where you've probably forgotten about it, by the time you get to breakfast. It's so intense, and you're so aware because you have your full consciousness and your awareness when you're out of your body. And for people who have experienced that, some people in near-death experiences come back and say, yeah, well, it's true. Well, if you've had an out-of-body experience, it can go on for a very long time, and you can repeat it many, many times. You actually get comfortable with yourself as the energy being that you are, and you start minimizing the importance of the body. It's just a vessel, and we get into that in this tablet where he tells you, forget about the body. It's nothing. The soul and your energy and your wisdom that goes with that are eternal, and you take those with you. So, anyway, so he gets back in his body after being scared by these hounds of the barrier. And then he gives us, kind of some, some final, words of encouragement to keep seeking the light. Now I want to, give you one experience I had when I was 17. And this particular one I may have done on radio, but I'd never talked about this in my life before until I got on radio and I realized that Thoth was talking about out-of-body experiences, and that I had to probably open my mouth and discuss what has happened in my path. Sure. And it had started happening to me when I was, 15 years old on the farm in Arkansas. I readily, over and over and over again, I would have these lucid dreams where I could stand on a fence post and turn into the wind and just take off flying, and I'd explore the local farm, the local town, and it was just over and over. And I had no idea that this was an out-of-body experience. And finally I started keeping a journal once I realized after reading Robert Monroe's book how profound this was. And I studied his book, I just want you to know. Mm-hmm. And a person, if you practice, and it does take some practice, but you can master doing out-of-body experience at will, almost every time. And if you think you can't, attend the Monroe Institute. They'll actually facilitate it for you to show you how and teach you. But it's really not that hard. And it's like riding a bike. Once you learn how to do it.
Practice and technique, Gerald. Practice and technique.
Yeah. And it goes in cycles, though. Some people only have them during very extreme situations in their life, like extreme illness or near-death experience or something like that causes this experience. But most everybody has one or two of them through their life. Other people, like Robert Monroe, it starts happening to him. He didn't seek it. It just started happening to him. And then he started writing about it. And one after the other after the other. And he wrote 3 books, in the series on him before. I don't remember when he started the Monroe Institute. I think it was by the 2nd book.
When people are getting heart transplants and lung transplants and really difficult operations that, cutting edge stuff, where they may actually die, they will at least be clinically dead for a moment until they get them revived. But they have all these pictures that are above the eye line, above your head, like in the hospital wards, to see do people have. They're doing experiments with out-of-body experiences that people are having operations like. They put these series of images that only people can see. Are above like 6 foot tall, so nobody can see them unless you're floating above the room or something,
Right.
But they're well aware of it. It clearly, of all the clinical records and the physical evidence from hospitals, like it's known to, like you say, in extreme circumstances, it's tangible to everybody.
Yeah, I found this. I wanted to finish up with this quote he made right at the end. He was talking about this severe warning about leaving your body and going out to these boundary limits. Well, don't let that scare you, okay, from doing it. Mm-hmm. When you first leave your body, you're most definitely going to probably stay in what they call locale 1, which is very close by. And it may only last a few seconds because it's such an experience. A lot of times fear overcomes you, and the first thing you do is head back to your body. Anytime you think back to the body, you just instantly go back. So whatever you think happens. It's really crazy. Anyway, he says here, as this final kind of guidance to us at the end of it, he goes, "Rather should ye seek to gain of thine own light and make thyself ready to pass on the way." What he's telling you is work on increasing your own internal energy in your chakras until you end up with your own halo, and let that be your ascendancy through that normal path. Versus doing what he did. He's kind of warning you, don't do what I did. Don't go out to the outer boundaries out of your body. Cause his severe warning is, if they catch you, they will enslave you. They'll own your soul. You will not be eligible for the next ascension period at the next, great year is essentially what he's saying. It's a really terrible fate if you do this. So just don't do it is what he's saying.
This is incredibly mirrored. Well, I wouldn't say mirrored 100%, but there seems to be echoes of this in the Book of the Dead, Gerald. I know I spoke about that before, but with the Anubis creatures chasing you and the hounds, or this.
Well, who do you think wrote the Egyptian Book of the Dead?
Well, that's what I say. This is the same. Thoth the Atlantean. So I mean,
exactly. So his last words are, "Light is your ultimate end, oh my brother. Seek and find ever the light on the way." So he's always light and avert darkness. So it's almost like I don't know, like a religion that says don't do this and do that. It's not really he doesn't lay out a dogma. He lets you decide what's light and dark. Mm-hmm. But he's telling you that if your energy is activated within you, your light being, your sun boss soul, that you'll have the will of the creator of all in your mind, and you'll choose the light naturally. So he says, just keep doing that and you'll find your way.
Wow. And the reason I mentioned that Book of the Dead, Gerald, is these guys, people look at this stuff, and the amount of people look at this text, the Book of the Dead, is something like 40 feet long. It's a 40-foot long spell. and it's rolled on a papyrus. They rolled it up in a sheet and they put it in with the body. But there's a copy of it in the British Museum, and they have it all rolled out, and it's cut into boards that are a few feet long each, and it's all on the wall. And people walk past this stuff, Gerald, and they go, you know, they just don't get it. They just think that these people were creating all this stuff, and these guys were navigating the realms, and they were doing this stuff and writing down their experiences and building up a picture of this different dimension, this different plane.
Well, you realize now they were being taught by a being who, not bound to any dimension or plane or time, could take on any form he wanted, and his main goal was to seek cosmic wisdom when he was a child born on, well, at least as the avatar in that body, born on Atlantis. And he was, you know, he was a very privileged, but also very deep being who only sought extreme wisdom in his path, and he was rewarded for it by these, by the dweller on Atlantis, you know. So he was given great power to facilitate us doing the same thing. So seeing Thoth as our agent of ascension is really a logical thing to do when he tells you all of that in his own words and in other words. You've seen it in other writings that he is the bomb. He's the first alchemist, and he was here on a mission for us. Now, how many of the other Anunnaki look like they were doing that? Maybe only Enki and Ninhartshog a little bit, but the rest of them used us like expendable fodder. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, they weren't all the same. They had personalities that range from serial killer to saint. How many times have we said that? Well, this particular one, excuse me, exhibits attributes that are very honorable. And I think we ought to be really grateful that somebody decoded this information and made it available to us. It's very profound.
Very profound, Gerald. Well, if you're okay, I'm going to probably play out the Emerald Tablet 8 then, Gerald, at the end of this.
Okay. Yeah. I think we're good on that one.
Okay, let's play this out, Gerald. We'll go to break. Of course, GeraldClark77.com for today's author if you want to browse whilst you're listening to Emerald Tablet 8.
Tablet 8, the Key of Mysteries. Thoth informs us that he takes on different bodies during incarnations with mankind. We are told that man is in the process of changing to forms that are not of this world, approaching the formless or energetic spirit state to a place on the cycle above. A cycle above third dimension is fourth dimension, ? We are told that we have to lose our bodies, become formless, to merge with the light. Thoth instructs us to speak without words, seeking light and wisdom. Thoughts are telepathic via the electromagnetic spectrum, directed toward those underground benevolent cycle masters dwelling in their blue light-lit temple. A past retelling of the dark forces that mankind summoned from ancient Atlantis arrived in this cycle, formless and unable to be seen by Earthmen. They must reside outside of the meager 300 nanometer visible range, from 4 to 700 nanometers our eyes can see in the simulator. They needed bodies, blood, to take on a physical form, mankind's to be exact. Now you know why blood sacrifices. Think of the Catholic Mass and the Bohemian Grove cremation of care ritual involving sacrifice. Brings in the dark forces as told therein. We are told that they were serpent-headed when their glamour was lifted, but otherwise appear as men among men. This is frightening. Thoth states that certain sounds made them visible using his magic. High places of authority were sought out by the dark body snatchers to rule over mankind. Light forces smacked down the reptilian dark forces, but they returned at a later time to repeat the battle against the light. We're advised about energetic boundaries around the earth that are guarded by the hounds of the barrier. Do not transgress this hard limit. If they get your scent, escaping back into the body during an oob is discouraged, as the hounds will follow your astral body back to the physical. He advises moving in circles back to the body for protection, with a follow-on ritual involving circles again. Better not to approach the outer boundary, whose hounds seek to consume the soul. The hounds can only move in linear fashion, thus moving in a circle can be used to lose them. Scary. When leaving the oob back to the body, Thoth instructs us to use the cross and the circle combined. The final prodding is to open one's mouth and speak the word to get free. Not sure what the word implies, perhaps just speaking anything in words once entering the body following an oob activates the mind and disconnects the astral thread that the hounds used to pursue the trespasser. I recall waking up during an oob when I was 17, unable to speak or move. Once I could move and speak, the paralyzed brain chemical that keeps one from acting out the oob takes a few moments to wear off if one suddenly comes back to the body while conscious. Unto thee, O man, have I given my knowledge. Unto thee have I given of light. Hear ye now and receive my wisdom, brought from space planes above and beyond. Not as man am I, for free have I become of dimensions and planes. In each take on I a new body, in each I change in my form. Know I now that the formless is all there is of form. Great is the wisdom of the seven. Mighty are they from beyond. Manifest they through their power, filled by force from beyond. Hear ye these words of wisdom, hear ye and make them thine own. Find in them the formless. Mystery is but hidden knowledge. Know and ye shall unveil. Find the deep-buried wisdom, and be the master of darkness and light. Deep are the mysteries around thee, hidden the secrets of old. Search for the keys of my wisdom, surely ye shall find the way. The gateway to power is secret, but he who attains shall receive. Look to the light, O my brother, open and ye shall receive. Press on through the valley of darkness, overcome the dweller of night. Keep ever thine eyes of the light plane, and thou shalt be one with the light. Man is in process of changing to forms that are not of this world. Grows he in time to the formless, a plane on the cycles above. Know ye, ye must become formless before ye are with the light. List ye, O man, to my voice, telling of pathways to light, showing the way of attainment, when ye shall be one with the light. Search ye the mysteries of earth's heart, learn of the law that exists, holding the stars in their balance by the force of the primordial mist. Seek ye the flame of earth's life, bathe in the glare of its flame. Follow the three-cornered pathway, until thou, too, art a flame. Speak thou in words without voice, to those who dwell down below. Enter the blue-litten temple, and bathe in the fire of life. Know, O man, thou art complex, a being of earth and of fire. Let thy flame shine out brightly. Be thou only the fire. Wisdom is hidden in darkness, when lit by the flame of the soul. Find thou the wisdom, and be light-born, a son of the light without form. Seek thee ever more wisdom, find it in the heart of the flame. Know that only by striving, and light pour into thy brain. Now have I spoken with wisdom, list to my voice and obey. Tear open the veils of the darkness, shine a light on the way. Speak I of ancient Atlantis, speak of the days of the kingdom of shadows, speak of the coming of the children of shadows. Out of the great deep were they called, by the wisdom of earthmen, called for the purpose of gaining great power. Far in the past, before Atlantis existed, men there were who delved into darkness, using dark magic, calling up beings from the great deep below us. Forth they came into the cycle. Formless were they of another vibration, existing unseen by the children of earthmen. Only through blood could they have formed being, only through man could they live in the world. In ages past were they conquered by masters, driven below to the place whence they came. But some there were who remained, hidden in spaces and planes unknown to man. Lived they in Atlantis as shadows, but at times they appeared among men. Aye, when the blood was offered, for they came to dwell among men. In the form of man they amongst us, but only to sight were they as our men. Serpent-headed, when the glamour was lifted, but appearing to man as men among men. Crept they into the councils, taking forms that were like unto men, slaying by their arts the chiefs of the kingdoms, taking their form, and ruling o'er man. Only by magic could they be discovered. Only by sound could their faces be seen. Sought they from the kingdom of shadows to destroy man and rule in his place. But know ye, the masters were mighty in magic, able to lift the veil from the face of the serpent, able to send him back to his place. Came they to man, and taught him the secret, the word that only a man can pronounce. Swift then they lifted the veil from the serpent, and cast him forth from the place among men. Yet beware, the serpent still liveth in a place that is open at times to the world. Unseen they walk among thee, in places where the rites have been said. Again, as time passes onward, shall they take the semblance of men. Called may they be by the Master, who knows the white or the black, but only the white Master may control and bind them while in the flesh. Seek not the kingdom of shadows, for evil will surely appear, for only the Master of brightness shall conquer the shadow of fear. Know ye, O my brother, that fear is an obstacle great. Be master of all in the brightness, the shadow will soon disappear. Hear ye and heed my wisdom, the voice of light is clear. Seek not the valley of shadow, and light will only appear. List ye, O man, to the depth of my wisdom, speak I of knowledge hidden from man. Far have I been on my journey through space-time, even to the end of space of this cycle. I glimpsed the hounds of the barrier, lying in wait for he who would pass them. In that space where time exists not, faintly I sense the guardians of the cycles. Move they only through angles, free are they not of the curved dimensions. Strange and terrible are the hounds of the barrier, followed by thy conscience to the limits of space. Think not to escape by entering your body, for follow they fast the soul through angles. Only the circle will give ye protection, save from the claws of the dwellers in angles. Once in a time past I approached the great barrier, and saw on the shores where time exists not, the formless forms of the hounds of the barrier. I, hiding in the midst beyond time, I found them, and they, scenting me afar off, raised themselves and gave the great bell cry that could be heard from cycle to cycle, and moved through space toward my soul. Then I fled fast before them, back from time's unthinkable end, but ever after me they pursued, moving in strange angles not known to man. I, on the gray shores of time's space end, found I the hounds of the barrier, ravening for the soul who had tempted thee beyond. Fled I through circles back to my body, fled and fast after me they followed. I, after me the devourers followed, seeking through angles to devour my soul. I, know ye, man, that the soul who dares the barrier may be held in bondage by the hounds from beyond time, held till this cycle is completed and left behind when the consciousness leaves. Entered I my body, created the circles that know not angles, created the form that from my form was formed, made my body into a circle, and lost the pursuers in the circles of time. But even yet, when free from my body, cautious ever must I be, not to move through angles, else my soul may never be free. Know ye that the hounds of the barrier move only through angles and never through curves of space. Only by moving through curves can ye escape them, for in angles they will pursue thee. O man, heed ye my warning. Seek not to break open the gate to beyond. Few there are who have succeeded in passing the barrier to the great light that shines beyond. For know ye, ever the dwellers seek such souls to hold in their thrall. Listen, O man, and heed ye my warning. Seek ye to move not in angles but curves. And if while free from the body thou hearest a sound like the bay of a hound ringing clear and a bell like through thy being, flee back to thy body through circles. Penetrate not the mist before. When thou hast entered the form thou hast dwelt in, use thou the cross and the circle combined. Open thy mouth and use thou thy voice. Utter the word and thou shalt be free. Only the one who of light has the fullest can hope to pass by the guards of the way. And then must he move through strange curves and angles that are formed in direction not known to man. List ye, O man, and heed ye my warning. Attempt not to pass the guards on the way. Rather should ye seek to gain of thine own light, and make thyself ready to pass on the way. Light is thine ultimate end, O my brother. Seek and find ever the light on the way.
And go to the conference and a little bit of a gathering at the monuments. You'll catch that on Gerald's page, or mine as well, jamesswagger.com for tours events. Gerald, here we go. The Key of Mysteries, Tablet 8 we're on today. And like I just said in the prelude there to the show, but the light body, I was just watching stuff today, funny enough, from a different source for a different reason. This light body, this thing is known to exist, Gerald, that when people are evolved, saintly, or there's many ancient references to people having a shine or a glow off them and a halo around the head. How far would this light body go, Gerald? And we'll kind of throw this into the start of the Emerald Tablets.
Well, it's an interesting question. First of all, I have seen lots of indications of correlations of spiritual beings, whether they're angels or the ancient Anunnaki showed with light emanating around their head or with a halo. So this affiliation with light is very, very interesting. And I think we're gonna, between this tablet and up through tablet 10, I believe it really goes deep into the concepts of the nature of light. And that part got me kill myself to participate in this? No, not at all. You'll see that, and we've already talked about this. He points out the reality of your energy and your soul and your wisdom existing outside of your body. And he talks about this as I call it an out-of-body experience. That's what culture calls them, or oobs. But he talks about that. As soon as you're able to achieve that, he says, you're golden. So anyway, wow. So we're told to lose our bodies and merge with this light. Mm-hmm. And he also instructs us that at a point in the process that we could speak with the 7 cycle masters in the halls of Amente telepathically. So he's telling you don't have to speak with words, that you can also do it telepathically, because they pick you up, dwelling in their little blue light temple in the halls of Amente. So that's kind of a bizarre concept, that thoughts are real things. And since we can measure them with an EEG, that in the electromagnetic spectrum, we know that where there's electricity and there's magnetism, they're orthogonal waves to each other, and they travel all through space and time. So the idea that our thought could be so excited, having been employed at LightPoint Communications for a couple of years and doing multiple patents on free space optics that dealt with light. So this tablet's kind of interesting. It throws a couple of curveballs too that I think are unexpected, but deep stuff in both these tablets. Like all of them, it's all very deep. And the more you look at it, the deeper knowledge you find in there. And we just as a heads up, we've been researching the idea of holographic reality and simulations, and watching lots of different movies on it too. And I just read a really terrific article today that was on the nature of the holographic reality and simulation. And scientists have been talking about this for quite some time, even though it's been pretty much put in a corner. But now it's becoming mainstream. Anyway, in that concept of having a holographic reality and avatars, Thoth begins this tablet by telling us that he takes on these different bodies during incarnations with mankind, and specifically taking on bodies of men. And I wanted to read you this little section out of the tablet itself, where he says it, and it's quite interesting. He says, "Not as man am I."
So without further ado, let's bring on today's guest. Hi, Gerald. You're very welcome back to the show.
Hi, James. It's really terrific to be back again.
Oh, here we go again, Gerald. Another round. It's like we're stepping into the ring each time, Gerald.
Yeah, and I know we both had to do a lot of preparation, and I think I'm ready if you are. Let's get ready to rumble!
That's it, brother. No, yeah, and just before we go there, Gerald, I know we're selling tickets fast for the symposium in the Yucatan. I just want to mention it as well. So we're getting pretty excited about that too, Gerald. That's coming up in September. So I'm pumped, brother. It's going to be great to see you down there in Mexico. So we can catch that on your blog page as well, Gerald Clark 77. So if anybody wants to see myself and Gerald,
for free have I become of dimensions and planes. In each take I on a new body. In each I change my form. Know I now that the formless is all there is of form. Wow. So he not only tells you he's an avatar, but he can take on different forms, and he can do whatever he wants depending on the dimension and plane that he's in. So the idea of light composing matter, which we've talked about before, I think we're going to get into that even deeper, especially when we get into tablet 10.
He's just laying this out for us, Gerald. He's just spelling this out, and he's saying, this is the power of what I have, and this is what I can do, basically.
Yeah. Well, he tells you, I was like you before, but this is what I was able to achieve. So he tells us that man is in the process of changing to forms that are not of this world. And this formless form that he's saying we're going to approach is an energetic or spiritual state. And so that we can participate in the higher dimensions. And so you're going to see that come out in these tablets where he basically tell you you've got to lose your body and become formless to merge with the light. Now that sounds like, oh my gosh, well how do you do that? I gotta go join a Jim Jones cult and